Good morning, Aditi. Today I have a question for you. This question is related to career choice. And what inspired me to ask this question is this beautiful little book, Helping Our Teens Land on Their Feet, by another young psychologist like you, Dr. Srividya, who is a career counselor. And what she says in this book is that with changing times, choosing the career is becoming more difficult than it used to be. And there's a greater generation gap between the young people who have to choose their career and their parents, and also their grandparents who are also generally around to offer their piece of advice. Of course, choosing a career has always been difficult. And if one were to generalize, life is difficult, and rarely have been people happy with exactly the type of life that they get. And when it comes to career choice, that has also been difficult because by and large, everybody tries to go for what is perceived in that particular period in history, at that particular place, the best thing to get. And naturally, everybody can't get it. And therefore, there is a competition. And many who get what they wanted are outnumbered by those who do not get what they wanted. But then the paradox is that even those who get what they wanted are not necessarily happy after they get it. So that has been something general. But it seems that this problem has acquired some new dimensions with changing times. And you, as a young psychologist, have been talking to young people who seek your advice in sessions which you call dialogue based self exploration. And since there is a trend towards trying to align what one discovers through this self exploration with the career, this problem has dimensions which it earlier didn't have. Earlier, the trend was that people tried to like what they got or like what they think will be good for them rather than do what they would like to do. So that change is quite visible in the atmosphere. So before I say anything more, I would like to get your take on this question.
Yes, absolutely. What you said that times are changing, of course, and today's generation has much more option than say their previous generation. But with more options also comes confusion, and then that becomes a very different combination of wanting to explore and also wanting to be secure. And that kind of reflects that sense of fear that comes in because parents are thinking from their own old pattern, from their own experience, that they wanted to secure themselves. But the current generation is more into exploration. But that exploration has to come with a sense of responsibility. So today's generation has much more responsibility of their own decision than say any other generation in the past because they're doing new things, they're getting into unknown territories, which requires a lot of courage and also a lot of responsibility of their own action. So one thing which I often hear from younger generation is that they want to know, they want to explore, they want to test. So there's a sense of being, that sense of newness that comes. So that is one aspect. But one thing which I always suggest is be very sure that you want to do something new because it is a trend or it is something which you really want to do. So that is a distinction which is very, very important because in today's time, of course, peer pressure has always been there. But right now, because there's so much of options, peer pressure has really increased many folds. So the moment, say, for example, I open my social media, I know that my one friend is doing this, my another friend is doing this. So this also looks lucrative, that also looks lucrative. So what all can I do? So first, very important thing is to really give yourself that space and time to figure out what you really want and not what you think you want because everybody wants that. Because then it is the same. Either you're getting into the trap of parental pressure or you're getting into the trap of peer pressure. In both, you're losing yourself. So it peer pressure just looks more cool than parental pressure, but it's essentially the same. You're wanting to do something which you don't want, but it looks like that you want. So that is the first clearer distinction, and that is why it is much more important to get into that self-respective space and knowing that what you want and then choosing. So it's a very conscious choice that one can make and see where you are and then address the situation, the consequences that come with it. So yes, that is what I would like to say to begin with.
You brought out two important points. Uh, One, that the sense of security or wanting security through the career is getting replaced by a sense of exploration, and the young people are willing to take responsibility for the choices that they make based on this self exploration. It's quite true that the older generation looked upon a sense of security, a sense of stability as something which was absolutely sort of a top priority when choosing the career. And uh, if one goes back to even the generation one older than myself, then the top choice was a government job, because that offered maximum security and stability. You Once you got the job, there was seldom a risk of losing it, and one could retire after 30 years on a pension. So that was considered something which was the most desirable thing. But then in my generation, things started changing, and they have changed. Uh, of course, change is always something which is bound to come. So things started changing, but all the same, that's the minds, don't change as fast as the times, and therefore the parents trying to seek security in the career for their children, that still continues. The second important point that you brought out was that it may look that young people are now making independent choices based on who they really are. But then there is, in a subtle way, peer pressure playing a major role. So it's just that parental pressure has now got replaced by peer pressure. And peer pressure, as you said, sounds cool. And now, therefore, I think it is important for the person also to sincerely reflect and uh, answer this question honestly, whether I'm doing it just because of peer pressure, whether I'm doing it just because as a young person, I have a certain temptation to be rebellious, to uh, question what is the norm in the society, and sort of be a non-conformist. That always feels cool to a young person. Or am I doing it because I truly want to align my career with who I really am? So these are two major points that you brought out, and maybe you may like to dilate upon both: the sense of security as the young people see it, and the uh, pros and cons of the peer pressure replacing parental pressure.
Yeah, like often you hear these questions, no, whenever you speak to young crowd, in that sense that my parents don't allow this or my parents think this. I always feel that when you get talking and you start exploring, you asking them subtle questions, it often comes down to the fact that my parents are only reacting to the information which I'm offering them. So students often offer, in that sense, a sense of fear that I don't know what will happen or I'm not sure. But they're secretly seeking that assurance from the parents that somewhere you give me that assurance. But they'd fail to realize that parents only want the best for you. So there's sometimes a secret projection that happens that I am not sure, but I will not admit it. Like we said, that parents don't want it. So my fear, I will subtly project it to my parents' fear. But what I've often realized, if you have a conversation with your parents with a sort of courage and responsibility, they do support you, because what we have seen is parents want nothing but your happiness. And they feel that your happiness comes from security because their happiness came from their security. So there's just a missing link of a conversation, which often turns out to be a big issue that my parents are against or their parents are not willing. So the gap between the parent and the child can be bridged by just one conversation, that this is what I truly want. But if you are not sure that you truly want it because you are exploring because of peer pressure, like we said, so you also have that tiny little insecurity that I'm not sure if I want it. And that tiny insecurity becomes very big when you project it on your parents. So that to become aware of am I projecting is where we need that self-reflective space, that self-inquiry space. And we through certain practices that is it this what I'm really looking for? And then you have that tiny little voice inside which gives you that courage if that truly aligns. So these are certain indicators which one can capture and become more sure of what you want as a young person to pursue. So that is also one space which the student can explore more.
Let's turn from there to actually how one chooses the career. And one thing which Sri Vidya brings out in this book is that it's just that the sequence uh, needs to be changed, in the sense that the tendency among the parents, of course, one thing which has not changed, as you said quite rightly, is that parents love their children and they want the best for their children. They want the children to be happy. That is something that has not changed. It's just that what is it that will make the child happy? That may not be properly perceived by the parents. And that, of course, can be helped through good communication. As you said, a good conversation. So, communication channels should always remain open. But having said that, one important thing that Sri Vidya brings out in her book is that the parents feel that the top criteria for choosing the career should be uh, money, status, and stability or security. And then, by the way, if the career option that offers all these things, money, status, and securities, it also happens to be something that the child would enjoy doing, so much the better. So, what the child would enjoy doing in a way comes the last. Whereas she brings out that the happiness of the child and ultimately uh, it's also in the interest of the society if we get people who are doing what they enjoy doing. So ultimately, what sort of we need to do is just change the sequence, because it's money is important and other things are important which the parents want for their children. Let's not deny that. But let's start with the child. Let's start with the young person. Let's first find out what this person really enjoys doing, and what is it that he's so absorbed in that he loses track of time. What is it that this child has a special talent and gift for? And then try to see which are the careers which can use those strengths, and then work around those careers. So that has become easy because the career options are also multiplied. Careers which didn't exist even 3 years ago, pre COVID, have suddenly opened up. And young people are themselves discovering that instead of looking for a stable job, if they find out what they're really good at, then they can also invent or sort of work out a career for themselves on their own, which they can do with very little investment from home using just a good computer or a smartphone and an internet connection. So what in short, I mean, they are doing now is that once they know what their strengths are and what they enjoy doing, then they try and think, how can this be translated into some goods or services or solutions that the world needs? And then they that becomes their career, to provide the society that type of goods or services or solutions and then market themselves, for which again techniques they have learned and it has become easy with the internet. So that's how they are able to make a living from their passion without necessarily looking for the security of a job. So it's just the sequence has to be changed. Instead of starting with what one expects from the career and then trying to see whether the child will be good at it, we have to start with the person who has to work, and then work out career options into which this person can fit. So I would really be happy to get your comments on this reversal of the sequence is all that we really need.
No, absolutely. This reversal is important. And now, in this age of individualization, this is how it works because not just in career, you know that today's young adult will not really agree to you without questioning because they have a mind of their own and they know what they want. They might be confused, but in that confusion is also hidden a clarity. So we just need to uncover that clarity and just give them that nudge that, okay, move forward in the direction. But having said that, there's also a possibility that most of them don't know what aligns to them. Like the sequence which you were discussing is to somebody that, okay, this is my passion, I want to do it, and I will see how it can convert into my financial security. But there are also young people who are very bright, but they're not sure what truly aligns. So they need that space that, okay, I'm good at this also, I'm good at that also. This might convert into a financial security. This might convert into a short-term career. This might convert into a long-term career. So there's also a possibility of exploration, which is like, no, I'm choosing this right now. This is forever. But it's also that this is what truly aligns to me at this point of time, and I will start exploring. And from that, might get into something which is much more deeper, which aligns much more truer to me than at this space. So there's also a progressive state in the choice. So, like how you said earlier, if I'm choosing a government job for 30 years, I'm here. But today, if, for example, say a career in education, for example, truly aligns, I will start. But from education, I can then also diversify in a sense that to one particular area which I want to explore more. So now careers have also become a scope for self-exploration, which was not earlier the case. So that is also a new development that because I'm self-aware, even for example, not that deep awareness, but just that who I am, at least they have that curiosity to explore. So now careers are also not just financial security, they are also a way of self-growth, self-development, self-exploration. And that needs to be seen that till the time they're aligning, the child is progressing and there's more and more growth. So now when we see, like, I think you also brought it up in your explanation that there's a lot of change in jobs. Like you're moving ahead because I want to grow, I want to grow, I want to grow. So on the outside, it looks like a financial growth and it looks good on my resume. But certainly, what is also happening is I'm also growing as a person because I'm going to a new environment, I'm meeting new people. I'm also getting to explore different parts of my own personality. So I think with today's generation, even not wanting so much to self explore, but somehow in the system it is embedded that the more you explore outside, inherently you're also exploring different parts of you. So I feel in today's way how the careers are being chosen, self-knowledge and self-awareness is embedded in that model. And that's a good thing for future generation to come. So that is the positive side which I see in the way careers are chosen. And also one thing like coming back to what you just shared, one thing is if you're aligned, go ahead, do that. But that's also important to emphasize that if it's not what you are aware that this is what I exactly want to do right now, that is also okay. So give that space to yourself to explore because often today college students get into that hurry of being financially independent. There's one thing that I don't have a financial support, so I want to earn. Another is my parents are willing to support financially, but still I want that identity with my financial independence. I think that also needs a little check because if I have that finance and I can get that space to really know what I truly want and I need a gap for, say, I'm not putting a timeline to it, but say 5 months, 6 months, 1 year, I should be willing to give myself that time and not hurry into financial independence because, again, that's a cool thing to do. Like at 18, I'm financially independent. So that is also very important that if I have that security and that space to explore and get aligned, I should give myself time without thinking that, oh, what others will think. So that is also another thing which is important to consider at that young age of when you're just passing out of college, deciding to pursue a future degree or to step back. So that stepping back and getting deep, if you can afford, my suggestion will be please do it. It will be better in future for you. Yes.
I think you said something very important, which could be of great value to young people trying to choose their career. Uh, One was something that you said just now: hasten slowly. Don't be in a great hurry to be financially independent and to make as much money as possible at a very young age. Don't be in a great hurry. That will come, but be sure that you are truly sort of aligned to what you are doing and not sort of once again getting misled by that uh, temptation for material growth. Second, that a career is not forever. That is again very important because that has been the traditional thinking that once a career has been chosen, then you are fixed for life. I mean, you have to go on doing the same thing all your life. That is also changing, which is again a very healthy trend because what it means is that the person is willing to accept a failure because the fact is that the person might have invented the career for himself or herself, but then around 90% of the startups are failures and it's only the successful ones that make all the headlines. But then that should not really discourage the person. One can always start with something new. But even if the person has been successful, the person may find that after some time, what the person is doing becomes a little mechanical, repetitive. The person doesn't like it anymore. The person has changed because, after all, the person is also not static. The person has grown and evolved. And therefore, if the person is on the whole on the lines of doing something which the person enjoys doing in a similar area or in an allied area, the person can learn more. So the person can be a lifelong student, keep learning more, growing more, and then using that to invent yet another career. And this need not necessarily be only in terms of what the person enjoys doing or what brings greater material prosperity, but also the focus of the person may change, and which should change. To start with, if the person was primarily thinking about what I will enjoy doing and what will bring me money and status and name and fame and so on, that is understandable. But then after some time, the person may feel that that is not really what is giving me a sense of fulfillment. uh, I should be doing something where I'm thinking beyond myself. I'm thinking of giving something rather than getting something from the career. What is it that I can give to those who need it? And then the joy of giving will follow as a byproduct, and that will feel much better than the happiness that I'm getting from thinking purely about what will make me happy and what will make me grow materially faster. So this change of perspective, which you may sort of call uh, that the person is evolving from the spiritual point of view, or the consciousness of the person is evolving, that's also important. And that, in fact, is the true purpose of life. So the present way of not getting stuck in one career and looking upon the career from various angles, not just the material angle, but also from the spiritual angle, are things which can continue if the person maintains this dynamic sort of an approach to the career. So
Yes,
maybe
absolutely. Which
some
is
closing comments you can give now.
no, I just picked on what you said about dynamism, no? That one thing which is having said after all these things is that any career is an expression of who you are. So the first and fundamental important thing is to become aware of who you are and then express it into your career. So the more you will become aware, the more expression will become better. And that is the alignment which will go on as long as you are alive. So the more conscious you become of that combination of who you are and the expression, the more you will achieve in the world. And like you said, the word byproduct, and then financial security, identity, all of these things become a byproduct. So your goal is more of exploration in which the self knowledge is embedded, and that results into an expression which leads to all that material comfort you're seeking. So material comfort is a part of career choice. It is not the goal of career choice. I mean, if that can be given to students at a young age, more conscious choices will be made in the future. I think that is where we stand right now.
Okay, so finally we return to where uh, what the mother said nearly 100 years ago, that one can start with a temporary occupation, and if one follows that temporary occupation in the spirit of karma yoga, does it with full dedication and sincerity, sooner or later the person is sure to discover his or her true inner calling. So one can wait for that. One can start with anything that seems reasonably uh, all right for the person. I mean, the person is reasonably aligned to it. One can start with that, and that may be only a temporary occupation. And sooner or later, the person will discover the true inner calling, which will bring that sense of fulfillment.
Absolutely.